Matthew chapter 14, starting at verse 16. There's no need for them to go away. You give them something to eat. Verse 18. Bring them here to me. Verse 22. It's all right. It's I myself. Don't be afraid. Verse 29. Come on then. Later in verse 29 to 33. You little faith, what made you lose your nerve like that? In chapter 15, starting verse 3. Tell me, why do you break God's commandment through your tradition? For God said, honor your father and mother, and he who curses father or mother, let him be put to death. But you say that if a man tells his parents, whatever use I might have been to you is now given to God, then he owes no further duty to his parents. And so your tradition empties the commandment of God of all its meaning. You hypocrites! Isaiah describes you beautifully when he said, these people draw near to me with their mouth and honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me, and in vain they worship me, teaching as doctrines the commandments of men. Listen and understand this thoroughly. It is not what goes into a man's mouth that makes him common or unclean. It is what comes out of a man's mouth that makes him unclean. Verse 13. Every plant which my heavenly Father did not plant will be pulled up by the roots. Let them alone. They are blind guides, and when one blind man leads another blind man, they will both end up in a ditch. Verse 16. Are you still unable to grasp things like that? Don't you see that whatever goes into the mouth passes into the stomach and then out of the body altogether? But the things that come out of a man's mouth come from his heart and mind, and it is they that really make a man clean. For it is from a man's mind that evil thoughts arise, murder, adultery, lust, lust, perjury, and blasphemy. These are the things which make a man unclean, not eaten without washing his hands properly. Verse 24. I was only sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Verse 26. It is not right, you know, to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs. Verse 28. You certainly don't lack faith. It shall be as you wish. Verse 32. My heart goes out to this crowd. They've stayed with me 3 days now and have no more food. I don't want to send them without anything, or they will collapse on the way. Verse 34. How many loaves have you? End of chapter 15. Chapter 16, starting verse 1. When the evening comes, you say, ah, fine weather. The sky is red. In the morning you say, there will be a storm today. The sky is red and threatening. Yes, you know how to interpret the look of the sky, but you have no idea how to interpret the signs of the times. A wicked and unfaithful agent is still on a sign, and will not be given any sign at all but of the prophet Jonah. Keep your eyes open, and be on your guard against the yeast of the Pharisees and Sadducees. Why all this argument among yourselves about not bringing any bread, you little faiths? Don't you understand yet, or have you forgotten the 5 loaves and the 5,000, and how many baskets you looked up afterwards, or the 7 loaves and the 4,000, and how many baskets you look up then? I wonder why you don't understand that I wasn't talking about bread at all. I told you to beware of the yeast of the Pharisees and Sadducees. Verse 13. Who do people say the Son of Man is? Verse 15. But what about you? Who do you say that I am? Verse 17. Simon, son of Jonah, you are a fortunate man indeed, for it was not your own nature, but my heavenly Father who has revealed the truth to you. Now I tell you that you are Peter the rock, and it's on this rock that I am going to found my church, and the powers of death will never prevail against it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you forbid on earth will be what is forbidden in heaven, and whatever you permit on earth will be what is permitted in heaven. Verse 22. Out of my way, Satan, you stand right in my path. Peter, when you look at things from the man's point of view, and not from God's. If anyone wants to follow in my footsteps, he must give up all right to himself, take up his cross and follow me. For the man who wants to save his life will lose it, but the man who loses his life for my sake will find it. For what good it is for a man to gain a whole world at the price of his own soul? What could a man offer to buy back his soul once he has lost it? For the Son of Man will come in the glory of his Father and in the company of his angels, and then he will repay every man for what he has done. Believe me, there are some standing here today who will know nothing of death if they have seen the Son of Man coming as a king. End of chapter 16. Chapter 17, verses 8. Get up and don't be frightened. Verse 11. Yes, Elijah does come first and begins a world reformation. But I tell you that Elijah has come already, and men did not recognize him. They did what they liked with him, and they will do the same to the Son of Man. Verse 17. You really are an unbelieving and difficult people. How long must I be with you? And how long must I put up with you? Bring him here to me. Verse 20. Because you have so little faith, I assure that if you have as much faith as a grain of mustard seed, you can say to this hill, up you, and move over there, and it will move. You will find nothing is impossible. However, this kind does not go out except by prayer and fasting. Verse 22. The Son of Man is going to be handed over to the power of men. They will kill him, and on the third day he will be raised to life again. Verse 25. What do you think, Simon? Whom do the kings of this world get their rates and taxes from? Their own people, or from others? Verse 27. Then the family is exempt, yet we don't want to give offense to these people. So go down to the lake and throw in your hook. Take the first fish that bites, open his mouth, and you'll find a coin. Take that and give it to them for both of us. End of chapter 17. Beginning of chapter 18, starting verse 2. Believe me, unless you change your whole outlook and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. It is the man who can be as humble as this little child who is greatest in the kingdom of heaven. Anyone who welcomes one child like this for my sake is welcoming me. But if anyone leads astray one of these little children who believes in me, he would be better off thrown into the depths of the sea with a millstone hung around his neck. Alas, for the world with its pitfalls. In the nature of things there must be pitfalls. Yes, alas, for the man who is responsible for them. If your hand or your foot is in hindrance to your faith, cut it off and throw it away. It is a good thing to go into life maimed or crippled, rather than to have both hands and feet and be thrown to the everlasting fire. Yes, and if your eye leads you astray, tear it out and throw it away. It is a good thing to go one-eyed into life rather than to have both your eyes and be thrown on the fire of the rubbish heap. Be careful that you never despise a single one of these little ones, for I tell you that they have angels who see my Father's face continually in heaven. What do you think? If a man has 100 sheep and one wanders away from the rest, won't you leave the 99 on the hillside and set out to look for the one who has wandered away? Yes, and if he should chance to find it, I assure you he is more delighted over that one than he is over to the 91 who never wandered away. You can understand then that it is never the will of your Father in heaven that a single one of these little ones should be lost. But if your brother wrongs you, go and have it out with him at once, just between the two of you. If he will listen to you, you have won him back as your brother. But if he will not listen to you, take one or two others with you, that everything that is said may have the support of 2 or 3 witnesses. And if he still won't pay attention, tell the matter to the church. And if he won't even listen to the church, then he must be to you just like a pagan or a tax collector. Believe me, whatever you forbid upon earth will be what is forbidden in heaven. Whatever you permit on earth will be what is permitted in heaven. And I tell you once more that if 2 of you on earth agree in anything, it will be granted to you by my heavenly Father. Wherever 2 or 3 people come together in my name, I am there right among you. Verse 22. No, not 7 times, but 70 times 7. For the kingdom of heaven is like a king who decided to settle his accounts with his servants. When he has started calling in his accounts, a man was brought to him who owed him millions of pounds. And when it was plain that he had no means of repaying the debt, his master gave orders for him to be sold as a slave, and his wife and children and all the possessions as well, and the money to be paid over. At this the servant fell on his knees before his master. "Oh, be patient with me," he cried, "and I will pay you back every penny." Then his master was moved with pity for him, set him free, and cancelled his debt. But when this same servant had left his master's presence, he found one of his fellow servants who owed him a few shillings. He grabbed him and seized him by the throat, crying, "Pay up what you owe me." At this, his fellow servant fell down at his feet and implored him, "Oh, be patient with me, and I will pay you back." But he refused and went out and had him put in prison until he should repay the debt. When the other fellow servants saw what had happened, they were horrified and told their masters the whole incident. Then his master called him in. "You wicked servant," he said, "didn't I cancel all that debt when you begged me to do so? Ought you have to have taken pity on your fellow servant, as I, your master, took pity on you?" And his master in anger handed him over to the gaolers till he should repay the whole debt. This is how my heavenly Father will treat you unless you each forgive your brother from your heart. End of chapter 18.